Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Playeasy Warmup, the podcast where we dive into the stories, people, and places driving the sporting event and tourism industry forward. I'm your host, Kerri Shields, and today is an exciting one. I'm joined by Anthony Holman, Vice President of Championships and Alliances at the NCAA, where he oversees the strategic direction of more than 80 NCAA championships and has spent over 15 years helping shape how and where championships are hosted. In this conversation, we take a deep dive into the upcoming NCAA bid cycle, what destinations need to know, how the process has evolved, and what truly differentiates a competitive bid today. Anthony walks us through the bid timeline, common challenges destinations face, and the must-get-right elements that can make or break a proposal. We also discuss how fan experiences, technology, and local partnerships are playing a bigger role than ever, the importance of strong local organizing committees, and how destinations, CVBs, and event organizers can work together more effectively. Looking ahead, Anthony shares perspective on where NCAA championships are headed and how data and innovation are shaping decision-making. We also touch on the NCAA's partnership with Playeasy and what that means for destinations navigating the bid process. I so enjoyed this conversation. I thought it was super insightful. Anthony really is an open book and wants to make this bid process as easy for destinations as possible, and really wants to learn from past experiences and how to make just the overall bid cycle better. I think it's clear his passion for the student athlete experience and the overall fan engagement. He's also has experience on the destination side of things, so really understands the community impact and the community buy-in to making an event the best experience possible. It also brought me back to my playing days at Boston College, and one of the events I always looked forward to each year was playing in the ACC championships in Greensboro, North Carolina. And one of the reasons that it was so special, not that we won all of our games, but we always had what we called like a host parent, our host dad. Mine was the same for 4 years, and he really made us feel like home when we were in North Carolina for those few days. And Anthony even mentions like the student athletes are spending so little time on the court or in the gym or the field. They're spending so much time in the hotel and things outside of the game. And so how important it is to make them feel important and welcomed into this new city. And so that local organizing committee was so crucial to my overall experience. I know we also had welcome bags that included some of the best chocolate I've ever had. And I just thought it was a small touch that really went a long way. And he speaks on just how important those little creative items to enhance the overall event experience for student athletes, and just engaging the community in general is so important and something that the NCAA is really looking forward to and looking more into the investment from the overall community in this bid cycle. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and whether you're preparing for your first NCAA bid or refining a long-term hosting strategy, this episode is packed with insight from someone who understands from the inside. I hope you enjoy. Today's episode is sponsored by the Playeasy Innovators Summit, taking place June 15th through 17th, 2026 in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the Vanguard Ann Arbor. The Innovators Summit is Playeasy's annual gathering of destination leaders, event organizers, facilities, and industry partners. 3 days of hands-on innovation, real conversations, and practical ideas you can actually bring back to your community. It's designed for meaningful connection, collaboration, and forward-thinking discussions around the future of destination experiences and sports tourism. And it's not all work. Attendees will also take part in curated experiences in one of the country's most iconic sports towns, including a visit to the Big House. If you're thinking about innovation, technology, and what's next for hosting and destination experiences, we'd love to see you in Ann Arbor this June. Anthony, welcome to the Playeasy Warmup podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I am very excited for this conversation. And for those who might not know you, could you give a bit of your background and how you got involved with the NCAA championships?
Yeah, sure. I have been at the national office for just over 16 years now. My entire tenure has been in the championships department. But prior to that, I worked in professional sports for a while. I worked for the Illinois High School Association and interscholastic sports for a while. In international sport for a while, ran a sports commission, so I'm familiar with those DMOs CVBs and others who host our championships and have a lot of appreciation for what they do. But my path to the NCAA was a little scurried. It was really through a relationship that I had with our general counsel Scott Beerby that introduced me to an opportunity to move over to championships and try intercollegiate athletics. I had done everything else, so thought we give this a shot as well.
And I think that was something that really stood out just in when I was preparing for this interview was just your experience on the destination side and having that unique perspective of going through working at Quad Cities and just there's not a lot of people on the event organizer side who have that same sort of experience. So definitely something we'll touch on. But you've been working with the NCAA championships for over 15 years now and overseeing the strategic direction of over 80 championships. What does a typical year look like for you, especially as we hit into this bid season?
Yeah, the bid season, when we're in a bid cycle, it's a little abnormal because we certainly ramp up then up around updating bid specifications and preparing RFPs and things like that. So during that time period, we spend a lot of time with our staff members on the front end preparing to say, hey, do these specs still make sense? Or are we changing the format of our championship? Are the dates still appropriately outlined? Have we had any changes with our broadcast relationship that require us to modify what we need in a facility? Are there been any rule changes related to the sport that would require us to think about who and where we could where these championships could be hosted? So a lot of time in review when we're going into a bid cycle. Outside of bid cycles, it's a lot of, I won't say rinse and repeat because every location's different, every situation presents its own set of challenges, but we're pretty good. Our team's pretty good at understanding what there is to deliver, and that's to try and deliver the best championship possible. During COVID even, I gave an example to our folks. We had to add testing, and we had to do distancing, we had to do all these things, but it reminded me of a clip from Hoosiers, if you guys have ever seen the movie, where they're preparing for the championship, and Coach Gene Hackman's character, the coach tells him, "Hey, put them up on your shoulders and measure the rim." And he drops it down 10 feet. Now measure the baselines. Now measure the distance to the free throw line. All the things, and he said, hey, you'll find these same measurements back at our gym in Hickory. And the point being, the surroundings may be different, the circumstances change slightly, but the job remains the same. We're here to do these things, and that's to provide a quality experience for our student athletes. So trying to keep our folks centered in around that, regardless of the other noise and the other things that are affecting it, staying focused on is what you were doing, delivering the best experience for our student athletes.
I love that, and you hit your right audience. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and so I think it's it is a perfect analogy for what just seeing the ever-changing landscape of college athletics right now, and you're right, just the importance of keeping the main thing, and it's that student athlete experience. And so, for those who might not be familiar with a bid cycle, from a very high level, could you give people an idea of what goes into this bid cycle, the amount of sports and championships that you're looking into as well?
Yeah. So overall, the NCAA, the national office, we have 92 championships that we're currently sponsoring. A few others were just adopted during our convention last week. So we'll be bringing on acrobatics and tumbling and stunt. Women's flag football just became an emerging sport. So we'll be at 95, 96 championships here shortly across 26 different sports. But right now, what we're looking for is a home for about 17, 18 of our sports, 67 various championships across three divisions, national collegiate as well. And what that means is, hey, we are seeking locations, venues, um, and kind of regions of the country that are well equipped to host our championships. And those vary depending on what the sport is, what division is. But what I like to tell folks all the time, that there may be an opportunity for just about everybody in some places, right? We can't go to places where there are, hey, we've got this great community ballpark where they've got, 18 different soccer fields and things like that. We're not youth sports, right? So we're not going for the masses. We're looking for a premier situation where we've got seating for fans, we've got locker rooms for participants, we've got some of the enhancements and amenities that our student athletes and fans have come to expect. But I digress. Anyway, what we're trying to identify and be more strategic about is us also saying to communities across the country to say, they may not have thought that they could host an NCAA championship. Well, you may not be able to host the men's basketball Final Four, but you certainly could potentially host our Division III field hockey championship because you've got X, Y, and Z. So that's what we're trying to do. Our bid specs are really high level and talk about what's necessary, what's needed to handle it. What we've done this most recent cycle is also include what I call an executive summary. It's a 1-page, 2-page outline of the really most important things about hosting NCAA championships. That includes the dates, the location, what the facility requirements are, some attendance history, some financial information, to give folks just a snapshot to say, "Oh, this is something we could do," and encourage them to then take another step. And we want to. My job right now is over the next several months is to have those conversations, engage with potential host sites, and say, "Yeah, we're going to walk along with you to help you submit a bid that makes sense for you and your community."
And that's something that working with Ryan Tressel, who used to work on championships, one of the things he used to say was, I want to make sure everyone knows that there is a championship for everyone. And I think that that is something that really was eye opening for me, one, as a former student athlete, but two, in the line of work that I do now. There are so many cities that I had never even heard of and could assume that a championship, an NCAA championship, could seem overwhelming. And so making sure that every city knows that there are going to be 90 plus championships that are looking for a place to play. And so we're just thrilled to be able to support that. And so I've been working now for the last few years with the NCAA and have been very well educated on the bid cycle, have gone to the bid symposium, and there have been a lot of changes over the course of the last few years. And so could you go through just some of those changes that will be implemented within this cycle, especially as it relates to how destinations approach the requirements?
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity. So we've had a different iteration of our cycles over time. We started with our cycles being awarded for out to 4 years, so seeking championships over a 4-year period of time that we were seeking, similar to what you see kind of the Olympic model. What we learned there, though, in when you're doing that, you're awarding championships. If you're awarded a championship the final year of a bid cycle, and you're awarding it 2 years in advance, it could be 6 years, potentially 7 years before you even get to that. And what we learned was that that creates some challenges both for the venues, for securing of hotels, for just the landscape of college athletics changes so much that being that far out was creating a bit of a challenge. And we also had new leadership at our national office during as we were contemplating the previous cycle. So we went from 4 down to 2 years during the previous most recent cycle, and part of that was a part of a business review analysis that we conducted at the behest of our new president, Charlie Baker. Not so new anymore, but former governor of Massachusetts. Really smart guy, by the way. And Charlie wanted to understand the business and also wanted us to be able to be more responsive, more strategic in our approach, and being so far out created some limitations. So we went to a 2-year cycle, and thankfully, we still had interest from a number of venues and facilities, so we awarded those. This cycle that we're starting now is going to be 3 years. And we think that may be the sweet spot. The 2-year window, folks were telling us it felt like we were in a perpetual cycle. You'd award it, and then probably 12 months later, you're doing it again. So they wanted a little more distance and gap between that. And it's a heavy lift for both our bidders and for our staff members to do that. So the 3-year cycle now is hopeful that it meets the needs of the folks and venues and facilities, gives them enough lead time to say, yep, we can secure this, we can maintain those dates, but also doesn't go so far out that we have all of these changes, and now that facility doesn't meet what our needs are because it was awarded too far. So that's the hope. That's probably the biggest part of it. The other part of a fairly significant change with this cycle is our intentionality of saying the bids are open. But you've got a long window, a long runway before you have to submit them. So the bids have been open since our symposium in October, and that continues to be the case. But we're not even looking to start accepting bids, or the portal won't even open until the summer of 26. So sometime July or August. That doesn't mean we want folks to sit on our hands. We want to do exactly what we're doing now. Go to folks like Playeasy, platforms like this, try and educate, inform, engage with communities and facilities, CVBs, sports commissions, and say, have you thought about this as an opportunity? Take a look at these things. So taking this next 4, 5, 6 months to really engage, I've been using the analogy of let's date for a while, right? We don't want to just show up and say, hey, let's get married and let's date for a while. Let's see how compatible we are. And our hope is, the objective is two things. One, we are able to find better fits. Two, we direct our partners and allies in a better direction. So they're not spinning their wheels, spending a whole lot of time on submitting bids that probably aren't great fits for them, and then helping them to really center in on the ones that make sense. And it'll allow us to make a better informed decision quicker. And everybody wants that. We don't want the bid cycle to be a 2-year period of time. If we can narrow that to a 6-month, 7-month period, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I appreciate how intentional you have been, especially as you've taken over in this role, and just hearing the feedback from both sides of things. Because I know from our perspective as a partner of yours, it is so eye-opening how much goes into these championships and how much preparation goes into putting together these bids. And so being able to take the time to, as you said, let's date each other and figure out how we can make this the best experience while saving us both time. I know that our customers and destinations in general just appreciate that kind of intentionality. And so, given how competitive hosting championship events are and have become, what are some ways that destinations can differentiate themselves beyond the basic bid requirements?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we also oftentimes hear that. How do we make a winning bid? How do we? Well, it starts with, right, the facilities and the amenities we need have to be there, and oftentimes, I'll just use an example of a volleyball facility. Hey, you've got a gym, you've got the ceiling requirements, this, the lights, that. Well, a lot of folks have that, right? Well, how do you differentiate yourself, your site, your city from other cities? What's unique about your community? What's unique about the area that you have? I think that's really important to let the attitude, kind of the culture of the area be shown out through the bid, and don't be afraid to highlight that. That's important. That's unique. Two, are there um, what are other things in your community that might be of interest not only to our student athletes but fans? What are the other attractions that you may have that your tourism department spotlights just for general tourism? Highlight those things and include that to say, hey, outside of the competition, those 2 hours, 3 hours of competition, you're going to be here for 3 days. What else is available for fans and student athletes to do? I think that's important. Are there um, are there subsidies to help provide a good experience? Subsidies like, is there safety and security accommodations that the city will provide to help in that regard? Are there marketing resources that the local radio stations or TV or outdoor signage folks will allow you to utilize to promote the event? Are there any grants or rebates available through state or local government funding to help subsidize those types of things? What are the relationships like with hoteliers? Can you secure the blocks that are needed for teams and fans and broadcast partners that are coming in? So being thoughtful about all of the other things that touch the championship and the folks around the championship beyond just the facility. Yeah, the facility is important. You got to start there. You got to have a facility to be able to accommodate the needs of the championship. But what are the other things that your city, your state, your region can provide? What are the interstate opportunities for folks to drive in? What are the flight options or the direct flights that come into your community? If they're not, what are the connection opportunities that come in? Hey, do you have rental cars? If these are teams that are flying it, do you have vans and those types of? That seems like a small thing, but if you get a team into a market and there aren't uh, buses or vans to help them get around, that affects their experience. So all of those types of things are really important, and I encourage folks to think about when they are contemplating submitting a potential bid for an NCAA championship.
Those are all great. And on a much smaller scale, we just went through our first bid process for our Innovators Summit this summer. And so it was also a very eye opening experience going through getting these bids and seeing what really stood out and just how creative some of the organizations got and really promoting their city as a whole. And for us, it was something that was really important that we wanted to go to a place that really engaged with their community and that they were able to showcase when we are bringing people into that city. We want to make sure that the whole community is involved. How is there, do you have any examples for a city or a bid that has done something within the bid process that really stood out?
Yeah, there are numbers of them. I will tell you that your folks in Philadelphia, where you are out of, did a great job on a bid. We our Division One wrestling championship was there this past year, and they had hosted probably 10 years before that. And some of the feedback they heard was, "Hey, the warm up space wasn't great, right? We need more space for student athletes to warm up." One of the other feedback, some of the other feedback they had, that where the facility is, the competition facility is, there aren't a lot of hotel options out there, so teams have to travel in. Can you help us figure out ways to make that more accommodating? Well, they were really creative in creating an external warm up space that was attached to the facility, that was made it seamless for student athletes. And when they first started to say tents, that got folks a little leery. Like, hey, it's March and Philadelphia, a tent, but it was, think about like glamping, right? Really high end hospitality type of tents and facilities you see at PJ golf events, or some of the tiny house living type of things you see, right, with all the amenities in it. And they really did that really nicely and provided a great experience for our student athletes. They were creative in creating, saying, "Hey, yeah, we know that transportation could be a challenge getting out. Here are our options for our train system. We're going to create another drop off area for teams, for buses and vans, and provide free parking." And like, so trying to be thoughtful and addressing the challenges that are there, as opposed to just saying, well, that's all we have, take it or leave it. Thinking about the challenges and how to address the challenges has been really good. So Philadelphia, kudos to them. That's just one example, but there are countless others that folks are really thoughtful about how do we overcome some of the challenges and the obstacles in hosting a top-notch NCAA event.
I love that. And I know Philadelphia, I mean, we could use some high hopes after the Eagles lost. So I'm I'm sure they will appreciate that nod. But so I know we talked about some of the requirements and some examples of success, but in your opinion, what separates maybe an average bid from an exceptional?
Yeah, an average bid doesn't meet the specifications. Yeah, they check the boxes. Yeah, hey, we need 100,000 square feet. Check. We need center hung video boards. Check. We need 500 parking locations. Check. Those things are checking the boxes. The things that make it exceptional are that, hey, here are 100,000 square feet. Here's another 20,000 square feet of attached space that can be used for X, Y, and Z. Here's, yep, you've got a center hung video board, but we can tie into dasher boards to do this type of promotion or this type of elevation, right? So thinking beyond just what the specs call for, and what other uses can be provided for that. I think that's when we see bids go above and beyond. And the other part of that is having buy-in from the entire community. It's really important for us that, we go to big cities. Philadelphia is a big city, but you go somewhere and it gets lost, right? There could be a Sixers game going on or a Flyers game or something else going on at the same time, and people don't even know it. Making a commitment to help to publicize, promote, and encourage local participation, engagement from the local folks to say, hey, whether you're going or not, you know about it, right? The worst thing for us is to get to a city and our fans show up or our participants show up, you wouldn't know anything about it, right? You get to the airport, there's nothing. You get in the Uber drive, and the Uber driver, the Lyft driver doesn't know anything about what's going on or that your event's even in town. So taking the extra step to communicate locally about what's going on, talking to your restaurateurs and shopping centers and others, and hey, sharing the schedule. Hey, fans are going to be here. There's a big break between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock. You may want to have additional staffing to support that. um, the session ends at 11 p.m. I know you normally close at 11 p.m., but there's going to be a lot of thirsty and hungry people. Would you consider staying open another couple hours, right? So our bids don't require that, but can you think about those other things to help satisfy the needs that are going to be there? Yeah.
And those small details go such a long way. I've probably told this story on here, but when I would play in the ACC championship tournament, we would always play in Greensboro, and they always had a local organizing committee. So each team had essentially like a host family.
Yeah.
And every year they provided the same welcome bag with like a certain kind of chocolate. And it made us feel so special and so
Right.
important. And
Right.
it was such a big part of just that athlete experience that probably didn't take a whole lot of extra effort on their end, but made us go away from Greensboro with lifelong memories that we'll carry with us. And so
Absolutely.
I think that those kind of things, the other one that has stood out that I'll give our friends at Indianapolis kudos was they do an unbelievable job of marketing throughout the airport. So as soon as you get into, you land, you pass that Harry and Aziz in the airport, and you know that there is a championship event happening. And the feeling, I've never been there as a an athlete, but as a spectator coming in for those events, it just makes you feel even more energized to be a part of such a great event. And so those small details really just go a long way. So I loved all of that feedback on that. So there are going to be a lot of people who are going through this process they've gone through it for years, but there are some people who are new to this industry and are going through the bid cycle for the first time. Do you have any advice for those destinations that are preparing for their first time?
Yeah. For the first is ask questions, right? Myself, our staff members who are championship managers who are responsible for the oversight of the respective championship. Part of this window again goes back to that dating period. We really want folks to be engaged during this period. So ask questions. You don't have to be committed to submitting a bid. You don't you can just be like, hey, we've got a new facility. I saw the bid specs, but I'm not exactly sure if this fits. Ask questions. We're happy to spend some time with our potential bidders to help them on that. The second is um, elicit feedback from previous hosts. We are open book. We want folks to provide good, bad, the ugly. Call Philadelphia and say, hey, what was it like hosting the wrestling championship or lacrosse or whatever? Hey, what's that? What's the NCAA staff like? Hey, what are the financials? How like ask all of those questions and get to a comfort level. We want folks to feel comfortable about what they're committing to doing. So we really want to be transparent on that. We'll share any information that we can with potential bids, but ask questions both of our staff and potential or past host for sure are two things that I would highly recommend.
That's great. And I can attest, you guys have been extremely generous for as much as you have going on with your time to ensure that this process goes as good as it could go this year. And so I know I mentioned local organizing committees. And so when it comes to hosting NCAA championships, they play a big role. And so,
Mhm.
from your perspective, who are the ideal individuals or organizations that should make up a local LOC? And what makes a community partner truly effective in that?
Oh man, that is so important, right? So the first is we need folks that are that are attached to the venue, the facility, the complex, wherever the championship is going to be. They need to be intricately involved in the local organizing committee. We need someone from that has some influence and some access from city amenities, right? So someone from the mayor's office, from the county board, whomever that is, that can make calls to get the answers that we need. Hey, can this street be closed? Can we put security on these things? Can we put signage on this street? Can we so city services, access to folks who are involved in city services is really important. Hotel property partners. We really need, you know, one of our student athletes from our student athlete advisory committee said something to me that was really eye opening several years ago when they started to talk about hotels and the need for comfort and rest. They spend more time in their hotels or traveling to the championship than they do in competing, right? Think about that. Like you spend the games 2 hours, you get there an hour early, you stay there an hour, 4 hours, you're at the venue. Well, you're at the hotel for 10 hours, right? So trying to be thoughtful about all of the touch points that the student athletes have. So having people from the hotel industry that are involved, what are the meals like? Do you have anybody, restaurateurs that are part of the local organizing committee? Do you have folks that have marketing background that can help promote those types of things? Do you have folks that have some operational experience that help you think about not just what's in the bid specs, but what are those extra things to do besides just checking the box? So those are the 5 to 6 really important folks that we think should be involved in that. And we provide in our host operations manuals what we call kind of a skeleton of a local organizing committee. And the scale is different, right? What you need to host the men's Final Four uh, in terms of a local organizing committee may not be the same as what we need for hosting the Division II women's lacrosse championship. But the tentacles are the same. You just may not to need as many folks or as deep down, but you need touch points in still those important areas.
And do you have any advice? I know the importance of having that relationship with the hotels is crucial, and just I think it's becoming luckily a greater trend in just cities in general is creating those community partnerships. Do you have any advice into how to either build that relationship or help educate some of those community partners about the experience of hosting one of these championships?
Yeah, I think, and I get it, right? The hoteliers oftentimes it's a dollars and cents business, and they've got to get it when they can. So I really do understand that. You don't want them to close their doors, but from if I were a DMO, CVB, a sports minister, I think I would spend some time taking those folks to other events, taking them, having them come with you to our symposium or other things, so they get a sense and understanding of what the true value of hosting the event is over long term, and that they aren't thinking about this just in, hey, we're going to host this one event in 2028 over 3 days. We're going to get 200 room nights. Okay, great. This is valued at this, as opposed to seeing the long term of that. Hey guys, if we do well, the NCAA has 92 championships. If we do this well, this 200 room nights that we're seeing now could aggregate over the time of, over multiple years that they come back, right? So trying to be more thoughtful opposed to just a singular event and seeing the big picture of it and the value of that. And the other part of that is just, hey, yep, teams, folks are coming there. If we do a good job of selling our city, other folks are going to come back outside of events too. So you may introduce we're going to bring some people to your community that would never have come there any other reason. Well, if they have a good experience, maybe they'll come back for a different reason.
Yeah. That's great advice, and I know that we both travel a lot for work, and I think some of those best experiences are when you come into a hotel and you feel incredibly welcomed,
Yes,
and like that they knew that you were here for some reason, and so it just goes a long way, and not just building those term relationships, but really looking into the future of what that could potentially bring down the road. So I
absolutely.
love that, and I know we've had multiple conversations over the past year, and something that's really stood out to me is how much you value data. and technology as a whole. And so, with technology and with data becoming more critical on the event side, how does the NCAA view data driven decision makings in championships and bids?
Yeah, it leads our decision making now, and it's now I won't say that there still aren't human components to it because we have committees and we have staff members that have um, some interest or biases, if you will, towards a location or region. But we're really using the data to say, if we're making a decision that's different than what the data says, what's the rationale? How are we justifying this? But we really want to know, where are our fans? Where are our participating institutions located that are playing this sport? Does it make sense for them to be in this region, right? I'll give a great example. Water polo. Most of our water polo playing institutions are on the West Coast. It makes sense for us to spend a lot of time on the West Coast. Does that mean we're never going to go to the Midwest or the East? No. But if we've got four opportunities, three of the four likely are going to be West because the data says that. Now, we've been in. I think our friends in Ann Arbor. We've been in Michigan. We went to Indiana for Toast. Yeah, that doesn't mean we're not going to ever. But if you think about the totality of it, it makes more sense for those to be on West Coast. Those where the teams are, the weather, the facilities, the spectators, all of those types of things. So that type of stuff drives it. The other part of it is, which I'm glad I have this platform to say, access. Taxes are a big part of an impact, right? If you've got facilities or uh, sales tax that are in excess of double digits, we that's got to be a part of the equation, which it wasn't before. Like we didn't really think about that, but that makes the event more expensive. If you've got facility fees that add on to the expense, we've got to consider those types of things. On the counter side of that, if you're in a state or city that has entertainment subsidies or tourism grants, that's going to play in your favor. So all of those data points now are part of the calculus in making decisions. Whereas in the past, they were kind of afterthoughts, right? It'd be, oh, that'd be great if we had it. But now it's, no, if you don't have it, that doesn't mean we're not going to consider you, but you go from, an 8.9 to an 8.2, like in our grading scale. Yeah.
And how transparent are you with that data, kind of before and during and after that bid process?
Yeah, admittedly, we haven't been as transparent as we should have been, but it was also because we weren't completely committed to it, right? Some championships use it, others didn't. We had lots of influence by committees or other individuals. That's changed, right? Now there's a universal approach to both soliciting and evaluating bids. So we will share the scorecards with potential bidders to say, here's where you fell short. And we want to talk about that ongoing now. We don't just want to say, well, we'll tell you after you take the test. Now let's check in as we're doing it. Here are the 10 things that you're working on. Okay, here's where you score right now. So if you were to put in your bid today, this is kind of how you would score based on what you're telling.
And I know just from going through our bid process, I could not believe how many destinations came back. We offered to give feedback on any of the bids, and I could not believe the number of people who asked for feedback because
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of times they don't know. They're learning as they go. And so being able to have that open and honest conversation just sets them up for success in that future time frame. So I love that from you guys. And so you mentioned a few new sports that will be added as NCAA sanctioned sports, which is super exciting. Looking at current trends, are there any particular sports or types of championships that you see growing in fan interest? And how might that influence where events are hosted in the coming years?
Yeah, fan interest. We see a lot of interest around women's wrestling, which we'll have our first women's National Collegiate Women's Wrestling Championship in March in Iowa. So we're excited about that. We're seeing lots of participation increases in flag football on the women's side. Don't have a whole lot of kind of spectator data on that, but we do know we've got lots of increases in participation. Now, on the spectator side increases, we're seeing huge growths for women's volleyball. Women's volleyball and basketball continue to uptick. So, as a proud father of a young female athlete, I'm ecstatic about that, both for the opportunities for our young women, but secondly, for the attention that they're getting, and the value proposition and the value position that those championships are bringing. So I think you'll see more growth and expansion on the women's side as we see more of those. That's where it's coming. The growth for new championships is coming on the women's side, and that's really a credit to folks like yourself and others who you know show up and are an example for young women, young girls to say, oh, I want to do that, or here's an opportunity to that, and a platform to be highlighted in that has really helped grow that. So we want to, selfishly take advantage of those things and ride the Caitlin Clark wave, if you will.
As a former women's basketball player, I've had the opportunity to go to the Final Four the last few years, and it still blows my mind that the growth of the sport and the interest. I talk way more about women's basketball over the course of the last 2 to 3 years with that Caitlin Clark effect than I did my whole career playing through college and post college. But I mean, it's just so exciting, and just to see the momentum, not just in the women's basketball side of things, but as you mentioned, things like flag football and wrestling and all of these sports that are just it's it can only go up, and I'm just excited to play a small part of that. And so as we look forward, what are you most looking forward to through this bid cycle?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to, and it's data matters, but what I'm trying to caution our team and our leadership around is that success isn't going to be based off of hey, we had 1,200 bids submitted for these championships. And we got caught up in that a little bit, right? Because we want competition is excellent. We want those things. But I really want it if it's 1,200, but only 600 of them are viable, is that success? Right. So what I'm looking forward to is that we have really competitive, informed bids that are submitted. Right. There may be fewer of them, but they are really high quality and would be good fits both for our championship and for the cities, facilities, and regions that are submitting them, because they felt informed, and they felt encouraged, and they felt their opportunities and chances of securing it made sense because of the information they had and the engagement opportunities that were in front of.
Awesome. I know a highlight for my 2025, I did attend the bid symposium, and you announced that you'd be working with Plays and helping to get these bids out there. And for me, it was a really pinch me moment. I know starting Plays in 2018, a dream of ours was to work with an organization like yours and to build something that could provide value, especially as former student athletes are my co-founders and I. And so it just has been such a pleasure working with you and your organization. Could you speak to why partnerships like ours are important for growing these championships?
Yeah, it's really important. Well, I'm glad that was one. Thank you all for coming and for being such a great partner and ally in this space for us and helping us to learn. Right, the education that you guys have provided yourself, Ryan, others from your team, to say, hey, if you thought about, here's what we're hearing from destinations. And how they like to receive information, how what are the things that are important to them. That really has helped us inform us on how we position and deliver it. Why it's important that we partner with with Playeasy and others, because we want to be everywhere where the destinations are, and you guys have a great platform. It's easy to use, it's engaging, so we want to be on platforms like that, so that our destinations that may not even know about our bid symposium or have a relationship with a member institution or have any idea about what it takes to host an NCAA championship, but they came across it because they were on your platform because they saw something about hosting a frisbee tournament and they came across our information as well. That's really great. And that's not a that's somewhat of a true story. We've heard
Yeah.
from a couple of folks that were on your platform looking at something else, and they reached out to me and said, "Hey, I saw this on Playeasy. Can you tell me more about it?" Absolutely. That's great for us.
Awesome. And we're looking forward to the continued partnership and hopefully getting you out to Ann Arbor for our second Innovator Summit this summer. And so, more of a fun question, but is there a championship that has really stood out in your mind personally?
It's like your children, Kerri. You love them all. You can't have a favorite, but I worked directly on the men's wrestling championship for a number of years, so that one's close, near and dear to my heart. I'm sporting a little lacrosse. Actually, that might be for Philly. That's in Boston. Anyhow, lacrosse was also a championship that I really enjoyed. Two sports that I didn't know anything about candidly before joining the association. I was a basketball player in college, grew up playing basketball and baseball, had never seen lacrosse live, but fell in love with it. It's a fast paced sport. It's physical. Kids are athletic, all the things, which really, was appealing to me and, gave me motivation to say, if I like this sport, and I play these sports over here, I bet there are others that would feel the same way. So really gave me some inspiration to try some other things to do that. And so similarly on wrestling, knew nothing about wrestling, but what I knew that they had really, really avid, rabid, crazy fans,
Yeah.
and there was something about it. If we could tap into that energy, the wrestlers, the coaches, a couple of things that I really respect about them. They are ultra focused and disciplined. Managing your weight, managing your sleep, doing the things that they need to do to be really successful out on a mat by yourself. Like that appealed to me just as a human, as trying to be a leader and all those types of things. Now I didn't know anything about wrestling, but I think me leaning into that and asking questions of the coaches and student athletes gave me a little credibility. And then they trusted me. I built some trust for us to try some things, right? We started to change the format. We started to change how we lay the mats out. We changed how we put fans in. We changed how a number of things that were, I thought, hey, this would make some sense in wrestling, just hadn't been done. So wrestling has come a long way. I'll take some of the credit, but it's really been because the coaches, traders, and others who were in that space recognize that it's really, really a fabulous sport, and they were open to trying some new things to introduce it to other fans. Like we went to New York in 2016, and this is not wrestling. If you've ever been to the wrestling championship, New York City is not their crowd normally. These are some good guys from the Midwest and like, hey, do their thing. They wear their hats. Going to New York City, whoa, whoa, whoa! I don't know about that, but we did it for an intentionality. We historically have had around 89 to 92% repeat attendees at our wrestling championship, which is a great thing. If you were selling season tickets, you want that because you've got a inherent ticket base over and over and over. The challenge was we were aging out. Our fan base are middle-aged white men, which is great. We don't want to lose them, but we weren't building the next generation of fans. Going to New York, we opened ourselves up to a greater geographic footprint and an opportunity for a dad in the East or someone to say, hey, we'll ride the train in for a session and watch. And we'll go back, So that type of commitment, which allowed us to go from, less than 10% first time attendees to over 27%. And we've been able to maintain kind of that number now, somewhere in that 20% range. And that's why we're going to go to Minneapolis with the wrestling championship in 2028 and do it inside a football stadium to again try and introduce this really cool sport, unique experience to a broader fan base and to move the casual fan to introduce it to the casual fan. So those are two that are for varying reasons that really stand out to me, but also offered us some challenges and some opportunities to grow and to try some things.
That's awesome. And I know I was going to wrap it up, but I could talk to you for hours. But for that example, a football stadium, you wouldn't think of that space as one to host a wrestling championship. And so, is that something that it's be creative with the space that you have? Are you open? So, could you just speak to if a destination wants to hear? I mean, obviously having that conversation with you, but maybe some advice on thinking outside the box with those spaces.
Yeah, we welcome those things, but that comes from data, right? We would not have tried, and we were set to host the wrestling championship in 2020, and at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, where we're going to be in 2028, and then COVID shut down. But we had sold 43,000 tickets. That was a strategy that had been developed and started in 2016 around Olympic years, around cities, around introducing building our casual fan base. And now here's a chance. The data is telling us here's the opportunity, right? Broadcast partners are supportive, sponsors are supportive. This is the window to do it. So yes, we'd be open to those types of things, but it's got to make sense. And we're just not going to, you know, uh, just do it because, hey, I had an idea in Sarasota. No offense to my friends in Sarasota, but it doesn't make sense there, right? Yeah. What does make sense in Sarasota is rowing. Hey, well, that'd be great. They've built this nice new facility in Sarasota. Your bid specs say only 3 years, but we've got a commitment. If you are willing to be here for a longer period of time, that we can do X, Y, and Z. Are you open to that? Absolutely. Right. So those types of creative approaches to hosting our championships, we welcome.
Yeah, and it sounds like no question is a bad question.
No questions
So,
back.
I think encourage that. And so, just to finish this up, one question I always ask: what has been the biggest lesson you've learned through this journey?
The biggest lesson is to listen, right? Being really attuned to what you hear from your colleagues, from your partners, from potential vendor, whatever the case might be. It may not be synthesized or fit exactly what you're looking to do now, but there's a piece. Take the pieces from wherever you can get them. So really being intentional about listening, and don't discount any opportunities to engage with folks. It may not be something, there may not be an opportunity today, but who knows, what the future holds.
What a great way to end an incredible conversation. I know I mean it when I say I could talk to you for hours, but luckily we will have a follow up podcast episode in the summer when we're closer to that bid deadline, and we'll also be hosting a webinar in April. So please check out for that. But Anthony, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, thanks everyone. Until next time. Bye.
See ya.